Hi, and welcome to this episode of Our Guest Is, presented by My East Coast Experience Media in partnership with RBC. Our Guest Is introduces us to a resilient group of people, typically called immigrants, but probably best described as entrepreneurs, community builders, and survivors. And in each episode, we'll explore their journey to the East Coast of Canada in their own words. Today, our guest is Paula Mendonça, an honoree at the 2022 Most Inspiring Immigrants in Atlantic Canada, a My East Coast Experience Media initiative presented by RBC. Hi, Dr. Paula. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Natalie.
So, Paula, you completed an undergraduate degree with honors in marine biology in fisheries in Portugal and arrived in Canada in 2002 to pursue a PhD in biology from Memorial University in Newfoundland, which is where you work now, correct?
That is correct.
And you're serving as Memorial's Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and then I also found it really interesting that you're involved in the Community Garden Alliance and Food Action in St. John's and part of the membership community at the St. John's Farmers Market.
That is correct. So I came here as a graduate student, and then I thought I was just going to be here for 4 years. So as you mentioned, I'm originally from Portugal, and of course, when you talk about marine biology and fisheries and oceans, Memorial is such a strong university for that type of work. So I was thrilled to do my graduate work here. And then things just evolved, and I started getting other opportunities. And I realized that even though I love being a researcher, I wanted to do other stuff as well. And that's where I am now as a director of innovation and entrepreneurship. And then my other passion, as you mentioned, is food security, is growing vegetables. And I think part of it is in Portugal, our weather, our soil, everything is so rich. It's so easy to have amazing vegetables and amazing fruit. And then when I came to Newfoundland and Labrador, I realized that at least here in the East Coast is not the same. I came, I think, from the sunniest city of Europe to the foggiest city in Canada. Maybe it's Vancouver, I'm not sure, but it's one of the foggiest for sure. And again, very the soil is very hard to cultivate, etc. So I started doing a lot of that work, and now I volunteer with the farmers market, which is really interesting as well.
Yeah, they don't call it the rock for nothing, I guess.
No. Yeah, the
Yeah,
topsoil is probably 2 inches.
yeah, I know. I'm in Nova Scotia in Halifax, and anytime there's our soil isn't that great either, and we're kind of on a rock too. And anytime there's a gust of wind, like trees just fall over because there's
Mhm.
just not enough space underneath the ground for the roots to kind of spread out. So I can imagine there's a lot of
Yeah,
challenges that you must face, working with the gardens in Newfoundland.
that's right. But you can make do. I grow a lot of stuff, so it is possible. But it's definitely challenging.
So you also own some skincare businesses too. Is it two that you own?
I did.
Okay.
It's best. So yeah. So I started again something that it came from my research background and realizing that skincare was so expensive, and I really wasn't. And especially at the time, this was in 2002, so 20 years ago, it was so. It was hard to get some of the things that I wanted. So I started researching other ways for skincare. So I started my business of natural skincare at the time called Olivia Canela, so a Portuguese name. And I was the first person selling skincare products at the farmers market here in St. John's. Now there's a myriad of people that have really nice things. And then I kind of, again, being the entrepreneur, when I was bored of that, I started teaching workshops on how to do skincare. Not the same thing as industrial pieces. We're talking about like small batches that you consume quickly. We want to be safe. And sometimes if you want to do bigger batches, you have to add other stuff, which is totally fine. So then I had my second business that I started with a friend called Seaberry Studios, where we would teach workshops, and it was fantastic. But then when I started my director position, it was really hard to keep both things. I have a small family, and it was just very demanding. So I pause it, and that's what I say. I said that I'm pausing it because I think eventually I'll go back to it because I really enjoyed meeting different people and being a teacher, it was great.
Yeah, a teacher of skincare, which is always
That's
a
right.
bonus too. Yeah,
That's
it
right.
must be a popular class that you were teaching
It
there.
was really interesting. And then sometimes we would bring experts in different areas. So we had a soap workshop and we had a chemist teaching that workshop. We had a foraging workshops in the morning. We would walk around and identify plants, and then we would use those plants to do some projects in the afternoon. So it was really, really cool.
What's the difference between maybe that you found doing skincare Portugal versus Newfoundland, Canada? Is there a difference, or is there something that you were able to inject, I guess, so to speak, from your experience into the
So
skincare?
I think when I look back, again, I was always trying to utilize the natural resources that we have in the place. So it's all about the place. So what do we have here in this province, in this part of the province in St. John's around us that we can utilize to then make skincare better for you. And I think if I was in Portugal, then I would use what we have there that is special that we can infuse our skincare with. And again, it goes back again to my passion for nature and the fact that I'm a biologist by trade, and food security and all that stuff. I think the skincare kind of brings all this stuff together in a
Hmm.
different way. So, and again, being European and having a family that always loved skincare, um, that contributed for my interest as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. So Memorial University in 2002. So you're there as a student, and you stayed. Was there something that made you stay? Helped you make the decision to stay? I mean, why Newfoundland?
Yeah, so the reason why I came to Newfoundland and Labrador was because I wanted to work with this researcher. So again, my background was in marine biology. I was in a specific field of physiology, and I wanted to work with a specific researcher, and that researcher was in Newfoundland, in the Memorial University. So I started communicated. When I did my honors supervisor had met this researcher anyway. He was looking for new students. I ended up being his first PhD student, um, and um, and that's the reason why I'm here. So I think if that researcher was somewhere else, I would have gone somewhere else. I think at the end of the day, I picked Memorial because of the quality of faculty that had the expertise that I was looking for. And I think a lot of graduate students, that's probably how they pick the university they go to, is because of the expertise. And I really don't think there's another university um, in Canada that has the breadth and depth of expertise in ocean related, from engineering to, again, physiology to aquaculture, like Memorial has right now.
Yeah, and you're teaching innovation and entrepreneurship too. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why it's important in your role right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, I guess it comes back to the when I was doing my PhD, even though I was really enjoying research, I wanted to do something more applicable. I realized I didn't want it to be the expert on that specific field. And that's what you are. When you do a PhD and then you move through academia, you become the expert of this really small niche research expertise. And I wanted to do more. So I was really, at the time, the internet is not as the breadth of internet and the things that you find is not so much. But I remember going to the library and getting these books all about what can you do if you have a PhD, and not putting that
There's
PhD
books
to
on
waste.
that.
These books, there were books about alternative careers, and one of them was technology transfer. So it's which is really how to move research that is happening at the universities and move it to the market, so have an impact outside of the obscure scientific papers that only people in your field are going to read. How can you actually bring that research in a way that is going to positively impact communities and society and the world? And I thought that was really, really interesting. And then I found out that there was a technology transfer office at Memorial. At the time was under the banner of Genesis, that is our incubator. But it used to be a business incubator and a tech transfer office. So I started volunteering there. They were really welcoming. And I started volunteering once a week while I was finishing my PhD. I ended up being hired to do a mat leave at the end of it. And then I ended up being hired as a staff member. And what was interesting when we were within the incubator is that then you're touching all these other small businesses that are starting out. And they come to you for advice on intellectual property, research commercialization, etc. And then on top of it, then the role evolved, the office evolved, and then all of a sudden, I started in 2007, and now not only I lead that office, but I have a broader mandate to support innovation and entrepreneurship at Memorial, and it's the first time that role has existed, and it's really exciting because a lot of things are happening at our university in terms of supports for entrepreneurship, and it's really nice to be in the middle and bringing these opportunities together and solve challenges as leaders within our community, and I really love it.
Yeah, you must see a lot of eager people who really just want to get out there and start a business
Yeah.
and have those great ideas. Um, how has the community that you grew up in Portugal sort of helped shape the community that you're creating in Newfoundland in your role at Memorial? You can get deep. It's okay.
That's a really interesting question. Um, it is an interesting question, and I think what is interesting is that I remember, and things get blurred when you've been here for 20 years. Sometimes things start blurring, like your experience, because soon is going to
Yeah.
be that I've been in Canada as long as I had been in Portugal. We're not there yet, but it's soon coming to that threshold. I remember when I came here that I thought it was interesting that people would not come to houses uninvited, that people would have to call and say, can I stop by? And I feel that in Portugal, if things haven't changed in 20 years, if you are passing by a friend's house, and I live in Lisbon, so we were even apartment buildings, that you just knock, it's like, hey, I'm here, are you free to come out, let's go for a walk, and if you couldn't, you just say no, but it wouldn't be unexpected for people just to ring the doorbell. And I find that in here people are much more
Yeah. A little more
things need to
reserved,
be
maybe.
more
Yeah.
planned, almost, let's put it this way. Yes, so people are a bit more reserved. So all this to say that I think that I try to build a community that is more less planning and more doing, I guess, that if you just feel like something, let's just engage. And again, I find that it's helpful, even now that I have children, to be able for my children to
I
feel
know.
that they're approachable, and that the community around them is approachable as well. Um, and the other thing is that people here have dinners way too early, and I could not understand, how do
Wow.
you get home and you have dinner at 5 p.m.? You don't leave work until 7 normally in Portugal, because you have longer hours, lunch hours, etc. And then you have normally a snack of some sweet and a coffee around 5 o'clock. You don't have dinner until 9. So for me, it was very bizarre. But it worked out well, because now when we bring our kids to Portugal, we just keep the jet lag, and they're right. Like, there's no culture shock, because it's 5 o'clock here
Yeah.
and it's 8:30 back home. So it's just perfect. It just works really well.
Yeah. So you kind of went from one part of the Atlantic Ocean
That's right.
over to the other. So how do you see, what similarities do you see between, I mean, and this might be a stretch, similarities between Portugal and Newfoundland, and how are they the same and how are they
I
different?
think the first thing that comes to mind is fish. So Newfoundland and Labrador and Portugal have a big connection. The connection to the ocean is huge. That's why I came here anyway,
Mhm.
right? And then the connection to cod and to fish. So I think that we probably are one of the biggest consumers of cod in Europe. Our cod used to come from Newfoundland and Labrador until the moratorium back in '92, if I'm not getting that date wrong. Um, what is interesting is that everyone talks about how people here in Newfoundland have an attachment for cod, and they do, but they basically eat cod in one or two ways. While in Portugal, we have cookbooks that are just cod recipes. Our frozen dinners have cod. We do everything like it's a huge part of our culture. And then, of course, by extension, every fish. I think we eat every fish. If we can get it on our shores, we'll eat it, which is really, really good. So there's no people here don't eat flounder. We eat flounder a lot. That was actually my PhD fish. So so this is
You ate what you studied?
I didn't eat it when I was here because it was a slightly different species. I did think it was a bit weird just because I was studying it, but I do. You eat sole and other types of flatfish back home, but I think that's probably, like, I'm sure there's probably more, but that's one of the similarities. It's the jig's dinner, that is something super typical in Newfoundland and Labrador, is very similar to what you call the Portuguese stew, or cozida portuguesa. So with boiled meat and cabbages and potatoes. We don't boil as much as people boiled in here, but very similar. The dry bread that they have here, that I forget the name right now, but we have it back home. So it's really funny because, and I think that happens to every immigrant or traveler. The more you travel, the more you notice that what you think is solely part of your culture, it's actually, there's something similar somewhere else. and that goes from music, from certain habits, from food. You always think, oh, this doesn't happen, this is just Portuguese, and then you travel and you see all these other similarities. And I think that's great. I think like makes it this world community.
Yeah. So just as we kind of wrap up, what would your younger self think about your life in Newfoundland?
My goodness, I don't know. I say, like, are you sure you don't want to pick a place with a nicer weather? I think that will probably be the main thing.
That's what we think every
But I
day as
think
Maritimers.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
I actually think that my younger self would be proud, because I don't think that I ever anticipated being and doing and impacting a community that is different than the one that I was born with, that I was born in. So again, I come from like a lot of immigrants and newcomers come from war-torn countries, and come from a different perspective as well. Finding, like, I came here as a student from an already privileged country and culture. So for me, I came here to study, and then I was going to move on somewhere else. And I like, and I thought if I was going to make an impact, was going to go and I would go back to my country and again do that way. So I'm really proud that I found the second community. I'm really proud that I am impacting, and I feel that is a big responsibility to be an immigrant in another country. And I feel that we all feel that way too. That if they welcome us here, we have a responsibility to really be part of the community and participate as positively as we can. So I think my younger self will be surprised, but I think she would be proud as well.
Well, thank you so much, Paula. And thank you to everyone joining us today for this episode of Our Guest Is. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another very special guest. If you don't want to miss an episode, make sure you subscribe. You can find us on myeastcoastexperience.com, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and YouTube. Plus, don't forget to follow My East Coast Experience online on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again to Paula, Dr. Paula. Love talking with you. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. And we hope to see you again.
Thank you.